testing guru, and today we will learn about API testing. Okay, so we will learn API testing from the basics, step by steps, and all the components of API testing, and what's actually API testing, how it works, what are the challenges in API testing, and what benefits we have by doing API testing. Cover all these things in today's session, but later on also we will learn the different tools we use for API testing and how to use that, and also we'll learn how to automate the API testing as well. Okay, so what exactly the API means? So API is an acronym, and it stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay, and talking in terms of API is a set of procedures, functions, and other points of access that an application or an operating system, a library, etc. make available to the programmers in order to allow interact with the other software. Didn't get it, right? Well, neither I did. Okay, so see here, in the you can see in the screen there is an application and there is an API request and there is a database and then you get a response. So this is how actually it works, but to understand more we will take an analogy here. Okay, so let's say you went to a restaurant and there is no waiter present. So you need to see the menu lying on the table and then make a request to the kitchen where the chef is preparing a dish for you. But it doesn't always work that way. What if the dish is not available? You will have to go back to your seat again and decide something else. There will be many customers present in the restaurant, which will slow down the process of chef, since now he will be listening to the orders instead of preparing them. Okay. Also, how we can forget we live in the multilingual world? What if you don't understand the chef's language? What we need to do here is we need a waiter. Okay. So waiter is what can be seen as an API in the internet world. The waiter will come and take your request and gives them to chef, and then in a response bring back the food to you. This waiter is a bilingual and speakers, who speaks both of your like customer as well as the chef's language and fluently. What what if the dish is not available? Well, the waiter knows beforehand you made a wrong request, so we'll tell you the dish is not available, you have to order the other dish. So like whatever is available, what is not available, all those information the waiter will have. So waiter plays an important role here, like exactly the API. Okay, so as visually depicts the above analogy, we are using an image here. We see that you are working as an user in the API world. You make a request to the waiter and works as an API who is intermediary between taking the request to the appropriate server, and this server will be processing your request and responding back to you. As said above, the server or application, a chef, we are considering here chef as a server. So then he prepares and he gives back the food that is taken back as a response and given to the customer. So that's how the API works. So here, if you see customer, waiter, and kitchen in a real world scenario, but in technically, so customer is an application, and waiter is an API, and kitchen is like a server. So whatever order he takes from the customer, he takes it to as a request to the server, and server gives a response, and that response will be given back to the customer. That's how the API works. Okay, so next, uh, we'll see what is the difference between API and web service. So API is, I mean, API may or may not need to have a network for its operations. Okay. But web service always needs a network for its operation. And one more thing is like API can be communicated through SOAP, REST, or XML, or such kind of languages. Okay, so web service cannot be can be communicated through SOAP. So both the option, like here API as well as web service, both behaves like they take those languages and processes. And API can perform all the operations which is in a web service cannot perform, and web services cannot perform all the operations like API. So here all APIs are not web services, okay? But all web services are APIs. So API comes on the bigger or a broader picture, and web services are part of that. Like web services, all web services are APIs, but all APIs are not web service. Okay. So next we will see what are the challenges in API testing. Okay. So in API testing, we need to have a proper documentation. The reason is like we have to select a proper parameters, and we have to have a parameter combinations and call sequencing and categorizing the parameters properly, and there is no GUI available to test the application, which makes difficult to give a input values. So that's the reason like we need to have a proper documentation of the API so that we can test it properly. And also we need to have access to DB, and also we need to have handle the authentication overhead. Otherwise like some APIs are not open and we need authentication, so we need to first get that authentication done then to get the response from the API. So those are the main challenges we face in API testing. And next, coming to the benefits of the API testing, it is a language independent. So your application can be developed in any language, okay, but you can use the APIs irrespective of your language. And the data exchange is happens via mainly like XML and JSON formats. Okay. And one more benefit, I mean, why people prefer is it's a GUI independent. So you don't have to, I mean, be ready with a GUI to do the API testing. When the API is ready, we can directly start testing. By that, you don't have to wait for like GUI application to be ready to test that. And also, since like GUI, we need to consider many things, but here we focus mainly on the data or the functionality. So the improved test coverage also more when compared, like when we consider API testing. And also as we start early, uh, the releases also we can do a faster release. These are the main benefits of API testing. Okay. So next class we will learn more about what are the different methods of the API testing, and so on and so forth. Thank you. Thanks for watching.